In this tutorial, we're going to be going through Ode to Joy. This is by Beethoven, who lived from 1770 to 1827, one of our great musicians of all time. His main instrument was the piano. He also played other instruments. And this melody, which is very famous, I think you'll recognize it, is from his Ninth Symphony. This is the last symphony that he ever wrote. He wrote it miraculously while he was completely deaf. He had gone deaf earlier, and by the time he was in his probably late 30s, he was completely deaf. But because he had been playing music from a very early age, he was still able to imagine how things would sound, even if he couldn't physically hear them. So this is a melody he composed during that time of him being completely deaf. And of course, he never regained his hearing. So when he died at age 57 in 1827, he was completely deaf. All right, we are going to be looking at these notes. And one thing to point out, these symbols above do not relate to these notes below. In this book, from here on out, you may see those little gray letters above. Those are telling you if you have two people playing, one person can strum those chords while the other person plays the notes on the staff. Okay, so do not think because that says C that this is a C note. This is an E note. This is a C chord. Okay, these happen to be the same, but that G is for someone else playing a G chord and you playing a G note. This also says G, but that is not a G note, that is an E note. Okay, so just ignore the gray chord letters for now. We are just playing the notes on the staff like we've been doing. All right, these notes are from the first and second strings, and in fact it uses the E, F, and G of the first string as well as the C and the D of the second string. It does not use the second string open in this melody. So we're using 5 of the 6 notes that we've learned so far for this melody. All right, a reminder about technique, then I'm going to play through it, and then I'd like you to practice along with this during the week. So remember that for the right hand, you're going to be plucking any note on the first string with that ring finger, and any note that is on the second string, you're going to be plucking with the middle finger, just like we've been doing in class. Again, I recommend planting that thumb on the 6th string to keep your hand in a stable position. Don't rest the pinky. You don't need it. Rest the thumb on the string so it's ready to go. Keep the other fingers free. All right, you're going to recognize this melody, I think. You will also notice probably that it does not sound quite like you're used to, and that's because it's been simplified a little bit for the book just to get you playing something familiar. Next week, I will be uploading a different version of this piece which has some changes to it to make it sound more like the Beethoven original. If you know how to make those changes already just by ear from being familiar with this melody, you may do that on your own. Otherwise, for this week, play this simplified version from the book on page 10, and then we'll add to it next week. Okay, remember, when you're note reading, instead of memorizing this piece, we are wanting to instill the habit of always looking at the sheet music. I've got mine right here. I don't know if you can see it. There's my stand. There's my music. So I am looking at this. I am practicing what I preach. Even though I do have this melody memorized because I've played it so many times, I am doing what I want you to do, which is I'm looking at the sheet music as I'm playing it. Okay? Just a good habit when you're note reading. Remember, when you're playing chords or other things, it's fine to look at your hands. I'm going to count in 4. It's going to be nice and slow. Again, you could slow it down even more if you need to. Here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next line. and then last line. There it is. A couple things to notice, which you probably did notice from listening or from looking. This first line and second line are almost identical, except the last measure. I'm going to put my guitar down. In the last measure of the first line, you have E, D, D. In the last measure of the second line, you have D, C, C. But the rest of those three measures are identical. Okay? The third line is completely different. For most people, this is the hardest line of the piece. You have more skipping between notes up and down, whereas these are all right next to each other. E to F to G to F to E to D to C, etc. And the last line, you may have noticed, is exactly the same as the second line. These are identical, second line and fourth line. So even though it looks like a lot of notes, it's 16 measures, there is a lot of repetition within this piece. That's going to help you as you're learning it. Okay, so remember to use ring finger for the notes on the first string, middle finger for the notes on the second string. Remember to use first finger for the F and C with the left hand, and the third finger for the G and the D with the left hand. And then remember to keep your eyes on the music as you are working on this.